Hey, I'd like to introduce you to yourself. This is the Seeking Selfdom Going Deeper podcast, and I'm your host, Akello Stone.
Today we got 3 new questions on chapter 3 from the wonderful Cole Murray. Let's see what she's asking today.
It's very easy to stick with what makes you most comfortable and seek out people who share similar points of view. I like your assessment of collective wisdom. How can we use this to stretch ourselves to explore new and sometimes uncomfortable possibilities rather than to reaffirm our current beliefs?
Let's be honest that the only way that we can grow and evolve as people is that everything that we believe in and value and understand to be true is challenged. And it does not mean that every time it's challenged that we deconstruct it and we rewrite it and we demolish it and we abandon it. Or it also doesn't mean on the other side that because someone has a completely different idea, we completely shut our ears off, which people are very quick to do, and not listen and not take the time. And you could listen to a person for 3 hours who are telling you about an opposition that they have to what you believe, and you could walk away still fully believing in what you already believed. And it doesn't mean that, just because you're confronted with that moment of feeling uncomfortable, that means you abandon everything and rethink everything. I think that when I talk about collective wisdom, I talk about the ideas, both those that are new, those are reinforced that we already have, new ideas from people all over, from all different kinds of persuasions, listening to them. And, I have the opportunity as a college professor, especially now that we're teaching online, which is obviously very different from campus-based teaching. There are pros and cons. One of the pros is that there are students who will respond openly to thoughtful questions related to their studies and related to their lives that has relevancy, who will go very deep and really share things. And I tell you, it's highly unlikely that every student in a class of 50 would be sharing every day in every class. There's usually a couple students who continue to share openly, which we love that. But I'll also push other students, to open up, and it could take some time. I survey, but in online, I feel like there's this openness to, to being exposed to other people's ideas. They have to talk amongst themselves on the discussion boards, and there are going to be people that have very different ideas and beliefs, but they need to hear them out. It's part of the growing process, because you may find this certain ounce of truth, and maybe that person, their experience is holding them back from opening themselves up to someone else's ideas. So maybe the conversation is really not about finding that connectivity around a shared value or belief, but it could be just the idea of the human experience is connective enough, right? We are connected to one another, and I think as we move through our life, many of us get more and more disconnected. But we're still at the root. We're still connected. It's like starting, I love plants. I love growing plants outside, especially. It's a little easier, right? But they get enormous. But the roots, starts out with one root, one little plant, and then it grows into this huge plant. And even though those leaves never really have a connection on an everyday life, the leaf is not next to the other leaf, but their roots are intertwined, and I think that's true for humanity. Even the people that we despise the most, I guess as a sociologist, I went back and forth between sociology and psychology, and I studied both, but I leaned more towards the idea that a lot of times what we believe, what we think, our psychology, is the result of these external forces. And I wanted to help people synthesize those, deconstruct those, understand those, and learn from them, and still be able to move on and grow from that experience. I mean, your experiences that you've had are not just going to disappear. So let's take the time to try to learn from them. And sometimes I found that sharing things with people can offer open them up to sharing, and open them up to giving you some ideas that you may have never even thought of. And sometimes they don't give you anything, and that's fine too. But maybe they give you something that you never would have had you not started that conversation.
2020 seems to be the year of becoming woke. Do you think you can truly understand the thoughts and experiences of other people by just observing? Empathy is not easily attained, which is probably why we have a difficult time handling change. Or should the goal be to sympathize and admit there are things you will never understand without having the experience?
There are truly many things you will never understand without having the experience. There's this thing of vicarious experience that I think is very helpful, and kind of being able to understand the world, being able to experience the world through someone else's eyes, through their experience. Some people are very good storytellers, and they can give you this rich experience that you never even had. And I think that's a wonderful thing. But I will never truly understand what it's like to be someone different from me. I always think, I was at the chiropractor today, and while I was there, I was immediately thought of had I been a woman who decided to have children, what, because I'm already, dealing with the back issue, right? I'm carrying a child in my body. What would they do? How would that disrupt my body? What kind of shape would I be in after I did that? Would I even do that? Is that something I don't even have to think about? So it's not even something I think about, but I do think about it. So I wouldn't be able to understand that, but I don't necessarily feel that that's required for empathy. Empathy, I see, and this is my definition, empathy and sympathy are different. Empathy is, well, let's start with sympathy because that's easier. I think sympathy is, I'm sorry, you're hurting, I feel bad for you. Sympathy, and then there's kind of compassion that goes I think deeper. I threw compassion in there, of course, right? Empathy, compassion, and sympathy. And compassion is kind of a empathy and sympathy and love just all wrapped up in this human experience that we're all having. But empathy is about taking the time to understand more thoroughly and more intimately what someone goes through. And there's a number of ways that you can do that. Of course, getting it right from the source is important. But even then, you're getting the perceptual interpretation of what that experience was for that person. And depending upon when it happened, if it was 5 days ago, 5 years ago, there's going to be a difference in how that experience is expressed and shared. And of course, a lot of other variables that affect that. But really, empathy is not, because there's something almost there's something in disempowering to some degree about sympathy. It's kind of I can't do anything for you, right? But there's something more empowering about empathy, at least in my opinion. And again, I like to take ideas and concepts. I look words up all the time, the definitions to see if am I really thinking about this word in the right way, or how other people would use it, because that is, I have to use the dictionary because I want to understand, to make sure that what I'm communicating someone is receiving in the right way. But then I do kind of find a way to make the word feel more connected to, my own thought processes, my own philosophies, my own values, and kind of way in which I move through the world. So I think of empathy as something that is empowering to the person, when most of us feel misunderstood. So getting some sense of understanding, or letting someone, or when someone actually takes the time to try to understand, that is a selfless act I think we need more of.
Finding my purpose is something that confuses me. Sure, I get the basics, to be of service and to help others. In the moment, I'm happy to be helpful, but that feeling is fleeting. The only thing that drives me on a daily basis is to meet the standard of living that makes my family comfortable. My idea of happiness is watching the waves crash on a sandy beach or laughing around the dinner table with family or friends. But that's not a purpose. How do you connect to your purpose if you don't have a hint of what it could be?
Oh, that's a big question. We could spend a lot of time talking about purpose. I feel like purpose, in a way, is this kind of a psychological game that we play with ourselves just to make sure that we're here for a reason. And so the purpose is that reason. Do we need a purpose in order to exist? Do we need a reason other than existing ourselves? That's where it kind of gets really philosophical when we talk about purpose. And I think happiness and purpose somehow get kind of connected in the mix. Like if you find your purpose, embedded within that purpose will be happiness. I think that purpose can be really driven by this idea for a specialized workforce where people will feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing and that's what they do, so that that position will not become unfilled, so that we can continue to put people in that position doing that thing so vital to society. A lot of times we'll never know our purpose, and then you can ask, and I think I was mentioning this before the battery died on the laptop. I've asked many people what their purpose was, and there are many who knew immediately what it was. And it could be something like, I want to be a nurse, and then there could be someone as my purpose is to help people, which is sweet because you can help people in so many ways. But it wasn't like about them. It wasn't about, my purpose is to be the richest, wealthiest, most powerful person on the planet. Like, that's my purpose. So when we think of purpose, I think we really do think of a reason to be, something to get up for in the morning. Then when we think about happiness, we think we may not be happy until we find our purpose, and that when we find our purpose, we will be happy. But how will you know if you find your purpose? Can you convince yourself that you have found your purpose? Can someone convince you of that? Does it really even matter to you to find purpose? I think many people find purpose in child rearing. And then many people just stumble into it, right? But the people that find purpose, they don't realize it until it starts to unfold. And then that feeling comes. And many of us probably don't have that feeling. We might have fleeting moments. I know Cole was mentioning sitting, like being happy, laughing with other people, or just seeing watching the sunset, watching the waves crash on the beach. Smelling a fresh batch of cinnamon rolls is a moment of happiness, at least for me. Seeing someone find their own happiness or find love or feel confident or evolve is happiness to me. But in terms of purpose, I don't believe there could ever be any voice that says, you got it, that's your purpose, that's it. There's no validation for that. There's no, verification of that. So I don't really chase purpose. I don't think I ever really did chase purpose. I think when you're seeking selfdom, purpose is one little piece of the pie, right? But it is not the totality of it. And I think when people use that word purpose, they see it in this totality of it. So you can be purposeful. But it doesn't mean that you have to have this one purpose. And if anything, what if we don't have a purpose? What if there is no purpose? There is no reason for any of this. This is just this orchestrated experience that has no rhyme or reason, as they say. And we're all going to die. If there's 7 billion people on the planet right now at this time, every one of us is going to eventually die. So if we didn't meet our purpose, and then we die, how will we even know? How will we feel bad about that? I mean, I don't know what your afterlife belief system is, but I think to some degree we connect purpose, finding purpose, to a fulfillment of this iteration of our existence. So then the next, like maybe the next level, maybe it's like a video game, like you got to get past this board and then you go on to the next one. And then maybe for many, finding that purpose is kind of like winning the video game. But rest easy in knowing that if you don't find a purpose, you are not lost. You are not lost, and you're not wandering aimlessly. You're creating purpose along the way, a purpose crumb trail, if you will. So that's episode 3 of the Seeking Selfdom Going Deeper podcast. I'm your host, Akello Stone. Thanks so much for watching or listening, and I look forward to continuing this dialogue. Peace.